Today is Friday, October 7th. We'll tell you what the president said about the risk of Russia using nuclear weapons, what a new report says about possible federal charges against the president's son, and pardons for thousands of people. We'll explain who is getting cleared. Plus, the good and bad in the newest data about teens and vaping. Google unveils its first smartwatch and its newest flagship phones. And what's changing in this year's MLB playoffs kicking off tonight. Those stories and more news to know today, next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Biden took a big step toward decriminalizing marijuana. He said everyone who has been convicted of simple marijuana possession under federal law will be pardoned. The White House estimates the pardons will clear charges for more than 6,000 people. They do not apply to people convicted of selling marijuana, though. Right now, no one is serving time in federal prison just for marijuana possession, but the White House hopes this will help make it easier for people to get housing or a job, or for those applying to college or hoping to get federal benefits. The president also urged governors to do something similar and pardon anyone convicted of simple possession at the state level. Nearly 40 states have legalized marijuana in some form, though it's still illegal in other states and on the federal level. A new report says the feds may have enough evidence to charge the president's youngest son, Hunter Biden, with a crime. The Washington Post cites sources who say federal prosecutors may have evidence of tax crimes and making a false statement about a gun purchase. The Post says the focus of the tax investigation is about whether or not he declared income related to his various business dealings, including overseas. And the false statement reportedly goes back to 2018. He bought a handgun that year and filled out a form, apparently saying he does not use drugs, even though he admitted in his book he did use drugs that year. He'll now have to wait on a U.S. attorney in Delaware to decide if he'll actually be charged. In fact, a federal investigation reportedly began as far back as 2018. After the 2020 election, Hunter Biden even acknowledged he knew he was being investigated, but he said at the time he felt confident it would show he handled his affairs legally. This time around, Hunter Biden's lawyers said anyone leaking information from a grand jury investigation is committing a felony. At this point, it's not clear if there was any connection to Hunter's laptop and emails that former President Trump and his allies have claimed showed illegal business dealings. And there's no word on exactly when or if Hunter Biden will actually face charges. A new stark warning from the president last night. He said the risk of nuclear Armageddon is the highest level since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. President Biden made the blunt, rare warning during a fundraising event in New York. Of course, he's referring to the threat from Russia and President Putin. Russian officials have hinted at the possibility of using nuclear weapons ever since the country's military has faced some major setbacks during its war on Ukraine. And Biden said Putin is not joking. At this point, it's not clear if Biden had seen any new evidence of Russia's intentions, but U.S. officials said recently they have not seen any change in Russia's nuclear forces. All right, if you have young kids listening, you may want to skip over this next story or turn the volume down. Unfortunately, we have to tell you about an absolute tragedy in Thailand. It's now the deadliest attack in the country's history. A former police officer walked into a child care center and killed dozens of kids and their caregivers. In all, at least 36 people were killed. The former cop was facing drug charges and had been fired from his job. His son attended the daycare where it happened. He later killed himself. But the community quickly showed up to help. Since a dozen people who were hurt went to the hospital, hundreds of people got in line to give blood. Also, closer to home, a stabbing spree on the Las Vegas Strip yesterday left 2 people dead and 6 injured. Las Vegas police don't know the motive at this point, but said it appeared to be an unprovoked attack. The suspect is now in custody. Well, there are new rules in place for flights coming to the U.S. from Uganda in East Africa due to concerns about Ebola. Now, to be clear, there are no cases or even suspected cases of Ebola in the United States right now. So this is meant to be a precaution since Uganda declared an Ebola outbreak last month with more than 60 cases so far. Now, planes that come from or have passed through Uganda will be redirected to 5 U.S. airports for extra health screenings. The White House says anyone who has been in Uganda in the last 3 weeks will need to be screened. Fewer than 200 people typically enter the U.S. from Uganda every day, and there are no direct flights. The deadly disease is spread through body fluids and has no cure or vaccine, though scientists are working to develop one. Health officials say the risk of getting the disease here in the U.S. is low, but the Biden administration is taking every precaution. It's a pretty remarkable number. A new report estimates that as many as 90,000 lives could be saved and close to 1 million hospitalizations could be prevented this winter if enough people get the newest COVID-19 booster shot. The analysis is from the Commonwealth Fund and Yale School of Public Health. It says those numbers are based on a scenario where 80% of Americans eligible for the booster shot get it by the end of this year. And it says even if the uptake is closer to that of the flu vaccine, so about 50% of those eligible get it, tens of thousands of lives would be saved. But based on the current speed of people getting boosters, that's unlikely. The CDC says only about a third of the population has gotten at least one COVID booster dose. But here's the thing. A different recent survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation found only about half of adults have even heard about the new booster. And those who have heard about it were often confused about whether they're eligible or not. So as a reminder, the new booster targets both the original COVID strain and the newer Omicron variant. It's available to all Americans as young as 12 years old. All right, we have more news still coming up, but first, let's take a quick break for our sponsor, BetterHelp. There are times I catch myself getting frustrated at a situation, whether it's part of parenting or running a business. But just like I want to teach my son to do, I do best when I take a deep breath and keep a more positive problem-solving mindset, no matter what it is I'm facing, big or small. And I've learned a therapist can really help me keep the mindset I want to have, making it easier to not only accomplish my goals, but to also enjoy the process of getting there. And that's what it's really all about, isn't it? I personally think everyone should give therapy a try. And BetterHelp is a convenient, accessible, affordable way to get started with it. It's entirely online. You just fill out a brief survey and then get matched with a therapist. And you can switch therapists anytime until you find the right one for you. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. The newest data about teens and vaping is out. The 2022 National Youth Tobacco Survey, published through the CDC, found about 14% of high schoolers and over 3% of middle schoolers use e-cigarettes. The good news? Those numbers are way below 2019 figures when a quarter of high school students vaped. But it seems, despite a drop during the pandemic, the numbers are creeping back up. And anti-tobacco groups say that's still too many kids vaping. Flavored e-cigarettes are still quite popular among young users, despite the FDA banning flavored vaping products derived from tobacco. Now, brands like Puff Bar that use tobacco-free nicotine, which is still addictive, have become the go-to products for underage vapers. This year, the FDA has warned synthetic nicotine manufacturers and retailers against selling and marketing to teens. Today, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced. Already, Nobel Prizes in various fields have been awarded all week. The latest was for literature. French author Annie Ernaux has been awarded the prestigious prize. The 82-year-old has published more than 20 books over 5 decades. Her often autobiographical books share her experiences as a working-class woman. She's been recognized for her work centered around class, gender, politics, and family. After hearing of the honor, Ernaux said, quote, "To receive the Nobel Prize is for me a responsibility to continue." Google is making a move on Apple by unveiling its first smartwatch. The tech company showed off its new Pixel Watch at its event yesterday. It's pretty similar to other smartwatches available, with the ability to sync with Android phones to send messages and take calls. But the Pixel Watch has a different look. It's smaller and has a circular face rather than the square face often associated with a smartwatch. Each Pixel Watch also has a Fitbit fitness tracker built in for tracking workouts, heart rate, and counting steps. Google acquired the Fitbit brand last year, and all watches will come with a 6-month premium Fitbit membership. The new Pixel Watch starts at $349. The company also unveiled its new Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro phones. They look similar to previous models, but Google says they have new camera features and an improved, brighter screen and a better battery. There are, of course, some other new features, including guided frame. Google says the accessibility feature helps visually impaired users with their selfie game by telling them to move in certain directions to get the best shot possible. Google says it wants people to give Pixel a try, so that's the reason the new phones start at just under $600, even though similar phones, aka the iPhone, start at just under $800. Both phone models and the smartwatch are already available for pre-order and will hit store shelves next Thursday. All right, baseball fans, it's playoffs time. Though there are some changes this year shaking up the postseason, including expanding the postseason to 12 teams instead of 10. Also, instead of a single wildcard game per league, there will be a total of 4 best-of-3 series. The wildcard matchups begin tonight. And since it's a best of 3, that means we could be watching to see who locks in a victory through Sunday. The games will all happen at the same stadium, so no teams will have to travel. After all the wildcard games have been decided, the League Division Series will kick off on Tuesday. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a quick break for our sponsor. At this point in a lot of our lives, trying to fit in one more thing onto our calendars can feel like a game of Battleship or Tetris. And that can be especially true trying to align with your doctor's office. I've experienced it many times. I call to make an appointment, and then it's 3 or more months before I can get in at a time that works for both of us. And now that I have a kid, I have to figure that all out for his appointments too. Well, ZocDoc helps make it easier to find and book an appointment with a doctor that suits your needs and your schedule. And ZocDoc is free. It's a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. I also appreciate that you can read verified patient reviews. Every month, millions of people use ZocDoc, so simply go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to Feel Good Friday. There's something special about military homecoming videos, and the latest one that has people grabbing the tissue box comes from Southern California, where a high school football player got the surprise of a lifetime while on the field. Samuel Harris, a high school sophomore in San Diego, had just finished practice and was standing in front of his teammates. He had been asked by his coach to give a short motivational speech about someone who inspires him. Well, turns out, the person who inspires Harris the most was standing right behind him, and he had no idea. In the now viral video, you can see Harris telling his teammates of his admiration and respect for his mom, who had been deployed away from home for months. As he finished his speech, she tapped him on the back, and the two shared an emotional reunion right there on the field. Harris was so overwhelmed and excited, he picked his mom right up in a giant bear hug as the tears flowed. It turns out his coach is an Army veteran and couldn't have been happier to help make this surprise happen. Now that the Harris family is back together, they have plenty of reasons to celebrate. Mom was home just in time to celebrate her son's sweet 16th birthday. We'll post the video on our Instagram feed today if you want to see it for yourself. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode. We're talking all about college rankings lists, what they're based on, why they can be misleading, and what the data says about whether college is really worthwhile in today's world. Then join us again Monday for your next news roundup. For now, thank you for listening and have a great weekend.